People have a hard time speaking about money. It is for many reasons. One is that it is so important to us. Money underlies life, but life is much more than money.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Keynote Curators podcast. I am Seth Deckman, your Keynote Curator. Our guest today is Meir Statman. Meir, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, I'm delighted to be with you again, Seth.
It is so nice to see you again. We were together in the Arizona desert where you were delivering an amazing keynote address for one of my clients. I want to get right into what's, at least for me, exciting. You have a new book coming out, and it's called, correct me if I'm wrong, Wealth of Being, a holistic approach to behavioral finance. Tell us a little bit about the book and kind of what was the impetus behind it.
So the title of the book is A Wealth of Well-Being, a holistic approach to behavioral finance. And it is about financial well-being, but it really goes much further into life well-being, because we need financial well-being for life well-being. We need money for a family. We need money to raise kids. We need money for ourselves. We need money for health. But that is not enough. We all know people who have plenty of money and yet lack life well-being. And so I write about life well-being, but how it depends also on financial well-being. Now, there's a lot of literature that is outside of finance about well-being by economists, by sociologists in particular, but that literature is not known in finance. And so I bring that in. And so I bring the scientific literature, so it is not always about my own life, so people can see. I say, in every person, in every family, there are points of pain. And my family is not exempt. So readers can see themselves in the book and can reflect on their financial well-being and life well-being, and perhaps, I hope, enhance them.
Money is a big subject. And I think that a book which is focused on this holistic approach can disarm some of the overcharged energy and overcharged emotion. I want to get your thoughts on, people have a hard time talking about money in a way that's powerful and deal with difficulties. What do you say to people that avoid the conversation or stumble around it or just have a hard time with it?
Well, indeed, people have a hard time speaking about money. It is for many reasons. One is that it is so important to us, so intimate, so central to our lives, to our status. One reason people are reluctant to speak about money, say to friends, associates, is because people care about their social status. And one part of social status is, how much money do you have? Now, I don't know how much money you have. You don't know how much money I have. If I told you and you told me, we will find that one of us has more than the other, and the other one would feel second to the first. And so we do ourselves a favor by just not disclosing that to each other. And it is hard within families as well. But we do that. People have odd thinking if you move from culture to culture about how to deal with money. So one of the stories I know and I tell is about a woman a financial advisor who lent her son some $27,000 for his tuition. And the agreement was that he will start paying right after he completed his studies. But The kid, of course, had nothing at that time. He did not even have money to buy his girlfriend an engagement ring. And you can imagine what his mother's demand did to their relations. Now, the mother thought that she's doing him a favor, teaching him financial responsibility. But of course, I hope that at that time, at that moment, you realize that how much wrong her approach is. And as I was listening to her, I was thinking about my life and my parents. When we married, Nava and I was 22, Nava was 21. A few months before the wedding, my parents came to see Nava's parents. We had dinner together. After dinner, Nava and I were excused to go for a walk, and our parents sat down to business. Business meant finding how much each pair of parents will contribute to the young couple to get them going on their life together, a down payment on a house. My parents were far from wealthy. They are Holocaust survivors. Nava's parents had even less. But as I found out much later, Nava's mom said to his father, whatever Meir's parents offer, we will match.
Mm.
And so they borrowed some of that money from relatives and repaid that. You can see how different this is, and how exaggerated sometimes our fears are that if we tell our kids that we have money, they're going to become spendthrifts. They're going to think that they don't need a career. They will just rely on their parents. Some do, but most don't, especially if you help them find a vocation in life. And so, again, it is important to have money. Money underlies life, but life is much more than money.
Yeah. That, it's better. What is it? It's better to give with a warm hand
Than a cold one.
than a cold one. I
Yeah.
mean, that's really powerful. I find as a parent, it's one of the most challenging. There's a lot of challenges as a parent, and it changes over time as your kids get older, is to teach about money. And I go by my own instincts and my own kind of guardrails or guiding principles. I often feel that they're watching. So how I am, I'm not overspending to overcompensate for an inadequacy or a feeling of, less than, but I'm not retaining it because out of fear, I try to give a balance. And when I say no, if it warrants an explanation, it does so. But I think actions are the biggest thing that they're watching. That's just my instinct. But your book that I'm so excited to get, A Wealth of Well-Being, a holistic approach to behavioral finance, just covers so much. You mentioned a financial advisor, and Meir, so much of it is, get into a fund, get into a bond, do this stock, have this percentage be this much. Where is your mortgage at? Are you saving for your kids' education, et cetera, et cetera? All of that is important, but talk about the nuts and bolts and logistics of that versus the bigger picture of a way of relating to money. Is it a tool? Is it a means to an end? Is it a vehicle for you to access experiences or provide for your family? Talk a little bit about that.
So again, money, of course, is important. It opens doors, it opens opportunities, but you have to ask yourself what it is about. And so some people, for example, are very good at saving. They're conscientious. Now, that's a wonderful thing. I'm conscientious, okay? And so I've accumulated a fair amount of money. The difficulty comes when you get to my age, and I'm in my 70s, and there are people my age now who find it really, really hard to let go and begin spending and enjoying their money, spending it on themselves. Or if they say, I don't care for a cruise around the world, spend it on your kids, spend it on your family, spend it on the community. All of these things that bring you joy, bring me joy. And what I found was that somehow my kids watched me and Nava, and they have learned. And so my younger daughter, we helped her buy a house. It required a lot of renovation. She wanted to put vinyl windows. I said, aluminum clad windows are better. She said, Dad, they cost double than vinyl windows. I said, what do you care? I will pay for it. She said, no, it's still too expensive. Well, eventually she did put in aluminum clad window. But of course, it tells me that this girl is balanced, she is mature, she is thoughtful. I don't hesitate to give her money, gifts, because I know that she will use it as a cushion rather than an opportunity to waste. And she is living well. It's not like she is miserly. Neither are my wife and me. That kind of balance is really important. Some people are get to be misers, tightwads. Some people are spendthrifts. Sometimes tightwads and spendthrifts are attracted to each other and get married,
That's right.
hoping to change the other.
Yeah.
Well, these marriages are not very likely to be very stable because one is going to try to control the other, one is going to resent being controlled. That is not a good recipe for a happy marriage. And so you can see how those things matter and how I learned from my parents. I learned from other people. I learned from reading about other people and how it is they handle money. And I then think about what it is that I'm doing. And I'm saying, Mayor, now that you have enough money, it is time for you to change your saving habits and spend on what matters to you, whether it is, again, family or whether it is charity. And so we have established, for example, an endowment at my university, Santa Clara, to support the research and teaching of my colleagues in the department.
It's, there's, you've covered so much: dating, marriage. It makes me think, in my case, my mother became a widow relatively young with 4 young children. There's divorce. And, finances affect all that stuff. You have parents, you have grandparents, you have grandchildren, even friends that are involved in one's finances, and everything kind of moves around. It affects our education choices, whether it's a private school, K through 12, or universities. And you had mentioned, whether in your case of your marriage years ago, there's different cultures and how everybody relates to it all. I want you to tie that into today, the society as it is, with social media, keeping up with the Joneses, or as we know, keeping up with the Kardashians. And, there's no one way to do it. There's no magic bullet, but there's so many signals about consumption and acquisition and acquiring things versus the non-sexy, the more boring, get your house in order, build a foundation, cut your teeth and learn in a conservative kind of way until you have your own wings and fly.
We want two things in life. One is to be rich, and the other is not to be poor. And this applies not just to the portfolio where you put, say, stocks in the being rich account and bonds in the not poor account, but also in life. Because eventually, when it comes to work and life, what I want, is a vocation. So I don't want to be rich in the sense of billions. What I want is a full life. And so when I was in Israel, when I completed my studies at the Hebrew University and got my first job as a financial analyst in a large company, It was interesting for a few months, increasing my life well being, and then it was not. And so we decided to go to the United States where I will study for the PhD. Now, what did being rich for me meant? It meant surely being able to earn a decent salary, but more important, it had to do with my life well being, having a vocation. And my vocation is that of a teacher and a scholar. Now, objectively speaking, I was taking a huge amount of risk. I left
Yeah.
a secure job. I already had the baby.
And
uh,
you had family,
I had
you were
family.
in a country and a culture that you knew, your homeland.
Exactly. And so, but I didn't even think about it in terms of risk. I just had aspirations. We
Right.
all have aspirations. And so I was willing to take that, which I think of now was a gamble. And fortunately for me, that gamble worked. And so, again, when you are young, take gambles. That is, keep your eyes open. That is what I tell my undergraduate students. If you have a job and you hate it, you've learned a very important lesson. Now find another job because you don't
Yeah,
even know who you are, let
that's
alone
right.
what the world is like. And so you'll kind of zig and zag, and serendipity is going to guide you into life that is right for you. Now, it is important to, of course, have financial well-being, follow your passion. That's very nice, but you need a passion that will also pay the utilities. But you need more than paying the utilities. You need something where you are going to get up in the morning and be happy to go to work, and have a feeling that you do good work, that you serve other people, not just yourself, because that really is what life centers on.
What do you say to, okay, have your passion, but passion has to pay the utility, the phone bill or the water bill or whatever. But at the same time, you're going to zig and zag, especially when you're younger. You're going to cut your teeth. You're going to learn. The important lesson is, okay, this isn't it. So we can eliminate that or move away from that and start, shaping and forming what it is, whatever it is. But at the same time, life happens. So while you might enjoy it, might not be a passion, but it's providing something, the others it's serving might be your family. So if there's a balance where if it's absolute, it's not you're despising or resentful or have disdain for the company you work for or the type of work you're doing, but if it's not this pure passion. However, what it's able to provide is this fulfillment that your family is taken care of, that the loved ones around you are able to advance, and you're providing pathways for their aspirations. How do you see in your research, and what you've learned over the years, how that balance is? You know what I'm saying? Like there's two dials. If we're only looking out for the passion, we may never, it's possible you may never ever find that 100% pure every day. I'm waking up. I can't wait to get my feet on the ground and run out and do what gives me money. But on the other hand, there's the reality, right?
Yes. So life well-being has many domains. Money, of course, is one, but family, friends, work, health, religion, society, all of these matter. Now,
Adventure.
adventure. Now, you mentioned that you've lost your father at a young age.
Yes, I was
Every
13.
family,
I was
every
13.
person, every family has points of pain. Our point of pain is our older daughter who is living with a mental illness, bipolar illness. So no one that I know has all of those domains perfect,
Yeah.
including work that is also a passion. So what we do is we try to kind of transfer well being from one domain to another. If you have enough money, it is easier to support a child who is living with mental illness and cannot work and earn money on her own. If you are in a situation where your work is not really a vocation, you still need that work. Well, you can fill it in by being a good father and mother, being a good brother or sister. You can fill it with other kinds of work, volunteer work. All of those matter. So for example, my wife does a lot of volunteer work for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And she has helped so many people and families who are going through what we did. So she's speaking from experience and she's speaking from knowledge that she has acquired. And so that is what I'm saying. You
Yeah.
cannot really perfect one
Yeah.
thing. And life well-being is not dependent on friends or marriage. Yes, it depends on them, but it depends on so many things. And learning to live with that pain, learning to apply medicine from one domain to pain in another, that really is something that we should all reflect on rather than dwell on that pain. And I know it's difficult. I mean, when we found out that our older child is living with mental illness, or it was shocking. It seemed like
Yeah.
my entire world is
Yeah.
collapsing. Here I was, I did all the right things, got a PhD, got a job. Why is it happening to me? Well,
Yeah.
of course, now I know it happened to me because stuff like that happens, and I have to live with. And we figured it out. I mean, our older daughter ends every conversation by saying, "I love you."
Mm.
What more can you ask for, especially if you have enough money to buy her food and provide housing and the rest of it? So, you might say, well, that's kind of banal, but life is just like that.
Yeah. No, I don't hear it as banal. Again, I'm being self-referential. I'm a little bit on in my years. I have children, a daughter in college, some younger children in elementary school. And there's a phrase, I'm coming up on a birthday myself, and I'm getting a little bit philosophical about life. And, there's a phrase, Meyer, you talk about the domains of life, whether it's health and fitness, financial well-being, your education, your relationships, your family, your dreams, adventure, religion, your spirituality, your creativity. All those are realms and domains of life. To have all of those firing on full pistons, it would be amazing. And maybe sometimes they are, and more often than not, some are ebbing and flowing differently. But day to day, there was a great commercial, and I know you've been in the States for a long time. There was a donut commercial where the guy woke up early and it was said something like, time to make the donuts. And it was every day. The guy woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning and went and made the donuts. But the end of the scene is the joy of people that came in and were picking out the jelly donut and the one with the colored sprinkles, and the kids who loved, the bear claws and all that. And that was the joy. But waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and putting your apron on and kneading the dough and preheating the oven and cleaning out the display case. It's not very sexy, you know, it's boring, but that enables you to have a child who has the mental illness. She says she loves you after every conversation. You have food, a home, and so much more, I'm sure. I know you shared with me. And I know she has a fantastic relationship with your other daughter, which just warms my heart so much. And I know it does you and your wife. I'm thinking of social media right now, right? And how it just foments this life is sexier than it. And I'm using the word sexy as a metaphor. Life is more exciting, more thrilling than it really is. Because on a day-to-day basis, you're brushing your teeth, you're taking out the garbage, you're paying the water bill. I mean, there's nothing like thrilling and exciting about it. Those types of activities are what provide this holistic wealth of well-being that your book speaks to.
Yes. So I have a former student who is now a very good friend, and he said, "Look, I look at social media. All my classmates have wonderful lives as they tell it on Facebook, and here I am having none of that." I said, as they say, don't compare your insides to other people's outside. Your classmates are lying.
Yeah.
They do have moments, hours, days, and longer where they are unhappy in one domain or another or more. It took him a while to get. He was really kind of depressed.
Yeah.
I even paid for him to go to see a psychiatrist to find out if it is something organic.
Hmm.
Fortunately, it was not.
Sure.
Uh, just in January, he got married. He is a different man. You can hear how delighted I am for him. And kind of getting that balance, getting to see. And I told him there will be always times when you're going to fight with your wife. That advice of be slow to anger and quick to forgive, that everyone will tell you that, and it is true. It's always, sometimes it's hard to follow, but it is true. And I think that for me, this sense that I am a mentor to someone, I'm a good friend to someone, for that student friend to know that his former teacher is now his friend and cares deeply about him, also gives him an example that I'm sure
Right.
he is going to carry forward as he cares about people. And so it is really important not to fall for that social media. And I know that it's hard. It's hard for teenagers in particular because they are so concerned about their friends and what they think about them.
Yeah.
But having that assurance that that they're going to grow up. I'm not. I can see a tennis racket behind you. So you must be one who is athletic. I am not. And as you can imagine, in high school, girls tended to prefer those who are athletic.
Sure.
But I said to myself, Mayor, all you need is one wife, and I'm sure you'll find someone who appreciates what you have. And I was indeed fortunate, and I did find that woman,
Wow.
and we've been married now for more than 54 years. That is a perspective that you can hear from your parents, as I heard perspectives from my parents that at that time I was just rolling my eyes, but they were true. They were correct. And God, I wish I had them with me so I can thank them once again.
You mentioned the word comparing with your friend who you're a mentor to, who's happily married, brings you such joy. I have twin daughters who are just by structure, by proximity, they're constantly comparing each other because you have one right next to the other for your life. But in the world of not just social media, Meyer, but whether you're in school and it's grades, or you're then out in the workforce and the job that you get and the money that you make and where you live and things that you do, where does the psychology, the sociology, the learnings that you've found with comparing in the world of financial well-being, how do you tell our listeners, our viewers, what's the healthiest, most holistic way to frame that when it does happen?
Well, again, you have to note that there are so many aspects, so many domains to life well being. So I have a fair amount of money. I surely am not the richest man in Cupertino. I surely am not the richest man in California. So I don't really measure myself relative to that. I say I'm doing much better than I expected when I was a student at Columbia years ago. I just, I told my accountant once when he prepared my taxes and said, Mayor, you pay a lot in taxes. I said, I never expected to earn as much as I'm paying in taxes now, and I'm not going to spend my life complaining about taxes. Okay, I'll pay my taxes. If you complain about taxes, it means that you earn a good amount of money. So
That's right.
stop complaining. So you may not be the richest, you might even be strained financially. But if you have a good family of people who care for one another, you are a winner here. You are in some way competing here. If you are a good friend, and so on. So, one of the chapters of the book is about education. We live now in a time, in a neighborhood where people would give fingers, feet to get the kid into an Ivy League college. And parents and kids feel that the world comes to an end if they don't make it to an Ivy League college. And kind of getting that sense that it does not really matter much. College education matters, and it would be nice to get it at an Ivy League college. But this is not the end of the world. I was just talking a month ago with a kid of a neighbor, and I said, college is just the beginning of adult life. This is not the end of it. and
Yeah.
and he is smart. He got into a good college that is known in engineering, which is what he is most interested in. But it is not an Ivy League college, and I hope and expect that he is going to do well there and in life. And so that really is what is important. That is to know when to stop, when to say, I have reached it, I have more than I even deserve. I've been lucky. And now I will find satisfaction in sharing my good fortune, my work. I worked for what I have
Right.
with others. This is how I find a well being. And that is true. That is true for all people, although where they find that life well-being, where they find that they are among the top, is going to vary from person to person. I
Yeah.
still don't run very fast.
Right. But you got Nava, and she was the
That is right.
perfect
I
one, no
have
matter
reached
how fast you walk or run or crawl. Yeah, the comparing can be a trap. I think all humans do it, and it's just a matter of awareness, which is what I think the big picture of what, if I could reduce down to, I don't want to reduce down to what you're saying into one word, but comparing happens. You have to be able to govern it. You have to be able to handle it not dominating you and dominating the conversation. They make more money. I don't have as good of a job. They live in a better house, and want what you have instead of having what you don't, or instead of wanting what you don't have. And that might take time. That just might take the experience in the course of life. Some people have that as a very young age, and some it takes a lifetime of work to work towards, and not towards like it's a destination. I talk to our listeners and our viewers every day, and I know that they value financial security and employment security. As a professor of finance, as a lifelong learner, as a doctorate in the world of financial behavior, behavioral economics, what would you say to our audience and our beyond our audience, to anybody who was giving their ear to hear the gold that you have to deliver about strategies, ideas, mindset on how to improve or expand, or be on a pathway to have power around financial security? It's a big, broad question, but what comes to mind?
Well, there's a very fascinating finding of people who work on issues of well being. There's kind of a U curve that is our well being tends to go down from
Like the letter U.
exactly. And it is one where life well being declines from sort of adulthood, early adulthood until middle age, until say 50s, and then begins to go up. And I know it's true for my experience because my well-being now is higher than it was when I was in my 40s and 50s. And it has to do with aspirations and where we are relative to our aspirations. And so when you are in your 30s and 40s and 50s, you are still struggling. Your aspirations are much higher than where you are. You are trying to earn more money. You are trying to move up in your career, to move from being an assistant professor to associate professor to a full professor. All of that, while you are doing that, is painful. And so I'm not suggesting that people just be happy with what they have. People, I think, are striving and should strive. I strove. The
Yeah.
reason I am where I am now is not because I was lying on my back doing nothing. It is because I worked really hard to get my papers written, to get them published in good journals, and so on. But there is a point where you have to say, I have reached what I want, say, in terms of my career. Now it is time for me to have goals in terms of, say, volunteer work, in terms of sharing what I have with the community. That really is what is important to do. And so it really, I'm not going to be condescending and saying, yeah, just be happy. No, no, you cannot be happy unless you have a job where you can earn decent income, where you have the ability to support your family, where you develop hobbies, where your health is good, and so on. And just being able to manage that transition and know that things are going to be better. As I mentioned, that is, I was not the fastest one in high school. It did cost me affection, but I said, Mayor, hard as it is, and it was painful. It is painful when a
Yeah.
girl turns you down for a date, but I comforted myself, thinking, as it turned out to be true, that those things will change in the future. And of course, that is why I did what I did. This is why I came to the United States to study. This is why I struggled at work. This is why I struggle in family, as I mentioned, with a daughter who is living with mental illness. But you come to kind of lower your aspiration in some way, So my daughter wanted to be, my older daughter wanted to be a lawyer, and it would have been wonderful if she were, but she is not. But as I said, she says, I love you. And she takes care of herself, and she takes care of her home and her husband. And kind of knowing that that is enough, that really is sort of the art of life.
Yeah.
And I hesitate because I'm afraid that I'm going to cross the line into condescending, into saying, here's what you do and you're going to be happy and have high well-being. That is not so. Everyone struggles, and we at some point just learn to live with what we have when we are at my age, or a bit younger. But you
Yeah.
cannot give up that drive, the
Yeah.
aspirations when you are young.
Yeah, I think the undercurrent is the drive and the aspirations and the goals and that future to live into. And being aware, again, I say educated, if you can read and write and reason at a minimally adequate level, that there is going to be suffering and there is going to be difficulties and there is going to be discomfort. And it's just part of the human condition. And that's part of the pathway. You have an aspiration, you want to get where you are to where you're headed. There will be discomfort along the way. And I doesn't sound condescending to me at all. It sounds almost Buddhist, like, look, but really it sounds like, look, there is suffering and let's accept that at a baseline level. And it doesn't mean that, everything's roses and butterflies and rainbows, but at the same time, you're going to have fantastically beautiful, fulfilling, joyful moments. And it can be everything all at once, which brings me back to your book, which is this holistic approach to this financial well-being, which is just so important for not only our listeners, but for everybody. We're coming to the end of our conversation. It's been just wonderful to be with you again. Meir, just thank you for your great insight and your thoughts on what is so important to everybody: financial well-being, financial health, a holistic approach, understanding how to relate to money, how to be powerful around it, and have it, be something that is a provider of the wealth of being, if you will. And just thank you so much for that. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Seth. It is so wonderful to be with you again, and I look forward to other opportunities in the future.
Me too. And to our listeners, thank you for coming back. And for our first-time viewers and listeners, we appreciate the opportunity to have shared these great guests, great insights, great podcasts with you. Please, your neighbor, your mother, your cousin, your classmate, anybody and everybody that would benefit from it, join us. You'll be smarter for it. We'll see you next time.